I've been hunting since I was old enough to carry a rifle. Grew up in Montana, out in the wilds, where men had to learn how to live off the land. My father taught me everything I know: tracking, patience, how to drop an elk with one clean shot so it doesn't suffer. I never thought I'd see something in those woods that would make me question reality itself. But that's exactly what happened. It was the start of elk season, and I decided to try a new location, a bit deeper into the wilderness than I usually go. I'd been scouting this area for weeks. Fresh tracks, droppings, signs of movement. It was promising, untouched, and quiet. I set up camp a few miles out. A simple one-man tent, a fire pit, and enough supplies to last me a few nights. It wasn't my first time being out alone, and I welcomed the peace. The plan was simple: find the right spot, wait, and bring home enough meat to last me and my wife, Abigail, through the winter. She wasn't too keen on me going that far out alone. "You always hunt close to home," she said, arms crossed as I packed up the truck. "Why change that now?" I shrugged. "More elk out there. Less competition." She sighed, tucking a loose strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Just be careful, okay?" "I'll be back in a few days," I assured her, giving her a kiss before climbing into the truck. Looking back, I should have listened to that uneasy feeling in my gut. I got to my spot just after noon, parked the truck a good mile away from where I planned to camp, and hiked in. It was a beautiful place. Dense pines, rocky ridges, a quiet little stream running not too far off. No sign of humans. Just the way I liked it. The first night was uneventful. Just the normal sounds of the forest. I sat by my fire, ate some jerky, and turned in early. The second day, I found the perfect place for a tree stand. Big, sturdy, and in just the right position overlooking a clearing. I climbed up before sunset, settled in, and waited. Hours passed, and then, through my scope, I finally spotted movement. At first, it was just a shadow moving between the trees. Huge, bigger than any bear I'd ever seen. But when it stepped into the clearing, I watched in terror and confusion. It was a humanoid figure, covered in dark brown hair, 8 feet tall at least. Its arms were long, its shoulders broad, and it moved with a strange grace, smooth and silent, like it belonged there. But the thing that got me the most was that it was holding something in its arms. A baby. I didn't believe in Bigfoot, never had, but there was no other way to describe what I was looking at. The creature cradled its young, rocking it slightly as it walked. It didn't seem worried, didn't seem aware that I was watching. It was just living. Like any other animal, taking care of its offspring. I should have left after that. But then I heard something horrifying. A sound from deeper in the woods. Low, menacing. I shifted my scope, scanning through the trees. At first, I thought it was a wolf, maybe a big one. But as it stepped closer, my stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't a normal wolf. It was massive. Bigger than any canine had a right to be. Its fur was jet black, thick, and matted. Its limbs were long, its back arched unnaturally, and its eyes glowed in the darkness like 2 burning embers. It was stalking, and it was hunting the Bigfoot and its baby. The mother had no idea. She kept walking, oblivious, the infant still nestled in her arms. But the creature, this thing, was closing in. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. Later, I'd hear people call it a Dogman, but at the time, I had no name for it. All I knew was that this thing radiated pure evil. With terrifying speed, the Dogman lunged from the trees, crashing into the Bigfoot with a force that shook the ground. The mother let out a scream, and she swung her massive arm at the beast, still sheltering the baby in its other arm. The Bigfoot fought like hell, kicking, biting, slamming her fist into the Dogman's body with the strength of a damn grizzly. The Dogman, though, it was faster, more savage. It moved faster than anything I have ever seen, clawing, snapping, tearing. The mother was hurt bad, but she wouldn't go down without a fight. She lifted the Dogman with one arm and threw it, hurling its body like a rag doll against a tree. The beast let out a yelp, but recovered fast, jumping back onto her with teeth bared. It sank its fangs into her neck. She roared, slamming a fist into its ribs, but the Dogman didn't let go. It was too strong. I could see it in her eyes, the realization, the fear. She was losing. The baby Bigfoot let out a terrified wail. It clung to its mother, its small hands grasping at her fur, but the mother could barely hold on. The Dogman was relentless, ripping into her flesh, its claws carving deep wounds into her body. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I knew what was about to happen. With one final, sickening crack, the mother collapsed. The Dogman stood over her, panting, its muzzle soaked in blood. The baby Bigfoot whimpered beside its mother's lifeless form, trembling. The Dogman turned toward the baby. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I raised my rifle, lined up the scope, and pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the Dogman's head, ripping off part of its ear. It let out an ear-splitting roar, spinning toward me, its eyes locking onto mine from across the clearing. My heart stopped. For a long second, it just stood there, bleeding, its chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. With one last snarl, it turned and bolted into the darkness. It was gone, but the baby Bigfoot was still there. I climbed down from the tree stand, my legs shaking as I made my way toward the whimpering creature. It looked up at me with wide, frightened eyes, its small body still pressed against its mother. It was helpless, alone. I knew I couldn't leave it. So, I did the only thing I could. I wrapped it in my jacket, held it close, and carried it back to my camp. And that was the night my life changed forever. The little thing barely weighed anything in my arms. Its body trembled against me, tiny whimpers escaping its mouth as it pressed its face into my chest. It was warm, its fur soft like a young deer's, and its hands, so damn human, gripped my jacket with a desperate strength. I took a deep breath and adjusted my hold on it. The mother's blood still soaked the ground behind me, the massive shape of her body barely visible in the moonlight. I tried not to look at her, tried not to think about how unfair it all was. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. No clue why I was taking this thing with me, instead of leaving it behind. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let it die out here. I made my way back to camp, my steps careful. The weight of my rifle slung over my shoulder felt heavier than ever. My heart still pounded in my chest from what I had just witnessed. Every shadow in the forest made me feel uneasy, because that thing, the Dogman, was still out there, and I had a sick feeling it wasn't the type to let something like this go. By the time I reached my tent, the baby had stopped crying. It clung to me, its tiny fingers digging into my coat, its eyes half closed. I knelt down, spreading out a blanket, and carefully set it down on top. It whimpered, but didn't resist, curling into itself as I covered it up. I sat there for a long time, rifle across my lap, staring at it. What the hell was I supposed to do now? I came out here to hunt elk, to bring home meat for my family, not to stumble upon creatures that weren't supposed to exist. The only thing I was sure of was getting the hell out of these woods before that thing came back. I stayed up all night. Every little sound outside my tent had me gripping my rifle, my nerves frayed to the point of breaking. I kept expecting to hear those heavy footsteps, to see glowing red eyes peering through the trees. But the night passed without incident. At first light, I packed up camp. The baby Bigfoot stirred as I scooped it up, blinking up at me with those deep, dark eyes. There was intelligence there. Fear, grief. It had lost everything. And whether it understood it or not, I was the only thing it had left. The drive home was a blur. I kept checking the rearview mirror, my paranoia refusing to let go of me. I was convinced something was following me, that any second I'd see that massive shape in the distance, sprinting after my truck on all fours. But nothing came. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the baby was sound asleep in the passenger seat, curled up under my jacket. I killed the engine, took a deep breath, and braced myself for the conversation I was about to have. Abigail was waiting for me on the porch, arms crossed. "You're back early," she said, suspicion laced in her voice. "What happened?" I climbed out of the truck and hesitated before opening the passenger door. "You're not gonna believe me." Her brow furrowed. "Try me." I sighed, reached in, and gently lifted the sleeping creature. Abigail took a step back, her mouth parting slightly as she stared at the bundle in my arms. "Clay, what is that?" I took a breath. "A baby. And before you ask, no, it's not human." She didn't move for a long moment, just stood there, staring, her eyes darting between me and the tiny fur-covered thing in my arms. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the battle between logic and reality waging inside of her. Finally, she says, "You brought home a baby Bigfoot." I exhaled, nodding. "Yeah." She stared at me for another few seconds before shaking her head and turning toward the house. "I need coffee." That was the beginning of the strangest year of our lives. We named him Bo. It felt right. He grew fast, faster than anything I'd ever seen. Within a month, he was the size of a toddler. By 6 months, he was bigger than a damn German Shepherd. And by a year, he towered over both of us. He never stayed inside. He didn't like confined spaces, so we built him a shelter out back, reinforced and sturdy. He spent his days roaming, exploring the woods behind our house, but he never went too far. He always came back, and he was protective as hell. One night, a coyote wandered too close to the house, and I swear to God, Bo was on it before I could even grab my rifle. He chased it off like a damn guard dog, his body tense, his chest puffed out as he watched it disappear into the trees. Abigail and I just stood there, staring. "Did we just raise a Bigfoot?" she asked, crossing her arms. I rubbed the back of my neck. "Yeah, I think we did." She sighed. "Well, he's kinda cute." And for a while, things were good. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't last. I knew it would come back. It happened exactly 1 year after that night in the woods. I was outside, stacking firewood, when I felt it. That familiar, sickening sense of being watched. The cold Montana air bit at my skin, but a different kind of chill went through me. My hands froze on the firewood, my heart rate spiking. I turned, scanning the tree line, and there it was. Just beyond the trees, half hidden in the shadows, it stood. The Dogman. It was even bigger than I remembered. A jagged scar ran along the side of its head, the exact spot where my bullet had torn through. A growl rumbled through the trees, vibrating in my bones. The Dogman took a step forward, its lips curling back over razor-sharp teeth. I gripped my rifle, heart hammering against my ribs. But before I could even lift it, a roar split the air. Bo. He came barreling out of the woods, his massive form crashing through the brush like a goddamn freight train. He planted himself between me and the Dogman, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with fury. The Dogman snarled, crouching low, ready to pounce. Bo growled deeply, his fur bristling. For a split second, everything was still. Without warning, they both charged at the same time. The impact was like a bomb going off. They collided, slamming into the ground so hard I felt the vibrations through my boots. Bo's massive hands locked onto the Dogman's shoulders, digging in, using his sheer size to drive the beast backward. Dogman reacted, its claws raking across Bo's side, leaving deep, bloody gashes in his thick fur. Bo didn't flinch. With a roar, he slammed his forehead into the Dogman's skull. The beast yelped, stumbling back. Before Bo could land another strike, the Dogman sidestepped, using its speed to dart behind him. Its massive jaws clamped onto Bo's arm, teeth sinking deep into muscle. Bo howled in pain. I raised my rifle, aiming, but I knew I couldn't take the shot. They were moving too damn fast, a blur of claws and fur. The Dogman yanked, trying to tear Bo's arm clean off, but Bo wasn't having it. With a raw, primal scream, Bo lifted the Dogman off the ground and slammed it into the dirt. Bo didn't give the beast time to react. He was on it in an instant, his massive fists crashing down over and over. Each strike was thunderous, bones crunching under the power of Bo's blows. The Dogman shrieked, its body spasming. After letting out a roar of pain and anger, it lashed out. A brutal swipe of its claws tore into Bo's chest, splitting the skin wide open. Blood sprayed across the snow. Bo stumbled back, gasping, but he didn't go down. The Dogman then lunged, slamming into Bo's midsection, tackling him so hard they both crashed through a tree. The trunk exploded into splinters, the sound echoing through the mountains like a gunshot. I took a step forward, my rifle trembling in my hands. I had to help, had to do something. But this wasn't my fight. This was Bo's. The Dogman pounced before Bo could get up, pinning him to the ground. Its slavering jaws snapped inches from his throat, hot, rancid breath steaming in the cold air. Bo roared, his massive arms forcing the Dogman back, but the beast was relentless. It clawed, bit, slashed, tearing into him like a rabid animal. Bo's strength was failing. I could see it in the way he wobbled, the way his massive chest heaved, struggling for air. Blood soaked his fur, dripping onto the snow beneath him. The Dogman could sense it too. The creature leaned in, snarling at Bo, right before it lunged for the killing blow. But Bo wasn't finished. With a deafening roar, he caught the Dogman's attack, his huge arms wrapping around its torso in a crushing embrace. The Dogman yelped, thrashing, but Bo squeezed. I heard ribs snap. He lifted the Dogman off the ground. The Dogman let out a strangled, wheezing cry, its movements growing frantic. It clawed at Bo's face, raking deep gashes across his cheek, but Bo didn't let go. A sickening crack echoed through the clearing. The Dogman's body twitched. Its glowing red eyes went wide, then dull. Bo dropped it. The beast crumpled to the ground. Dead. Silence. Only the sound of Bo's ragged breathing filled the air. Blood dripped from his fur, his shoulders rising and falling in deep, exhausted heaves. Bo stumbled, dropping to one knee. I ran to him, my hands grabbing his massive arm, my heart pounding. He was hurt, bad. Deep gashes covered his body, blood pouring from wounds too numerous to count. but he was alive. Bo huffed a weak, tired sound. His massive hand reached out, gripping my shoulder in a way that felt human. He looked at me, his dark eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before. Peace. For the first time since I had found him, he collapsed. It took Abigail and I weeks to nurse Bo back to health. His wounds were deep, some nearly fatal, but he was strong, stronger than anything I'd ever seen. He pulled through, and when he did, he was different. Like the weight he had been carrying, the grief, the loss, the fear had finally been lifted. We buried the Dogman deep in the woods, far away from the house. We never spoke of it again. Bo never wandered too far after that. He stayed close, always watching, always protecting. Four years had passed since the night Bo nearly lost his life. 4 years since the night our world changed. The scars had healed, but the memory lingered. Abigail and I tried to move on, to fall back into our routine, but something had shifted in the air. Bo could feel it. I could feel it too. It started small, little things that didn't feel right. I'd step outside to gather firewood and feel something watching me from the tree line. I'd pause, rifle in hand, listening to the wind, but nothing ever revealed itself. Sometimes in the dead of night, I'd wake up to find Bo standing outside, his massive frame barely visible in the dark, his head tilted toward the woods, listening. At first, I tried to ignore it, but then the forest changed. The sounds weren't the same. For as long as I had lived here, the woods were full of life, owls hooting, crickets chirping. Now, there were nights where everything fell deathly silent. The kind of silence that didn't feel right. The kind that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Bo started acting different, more restless, more on edge. At night, he no longer slept in his shelter behind the house. Instead, he stayed closer, either crouched near the porch or pacing along the tree line, his eyes locked onto the darkened woods. And then there were the nights when he wouldn't move at all. I'd step outside to find him standing statue still, his nostrils flaring, his ears twitching. His breathing would be slow, measured, almost like he was trying to mask his presence. He wasn't watching the trees. He was listening. For what? I didn't know. But whatever it was, he could feel it out there. And so could I. The feeling of being watched never left. Even Abigail started noticing. "You've been sleeping with the rifle next to the bed again," she said one morning, her voice casual but weighted. I poured my coffee, staring out the window at Bo, who was seated just beyond the porch, his large form hunched forward, staring into the trees. "I don't like it," I muttered. She sighed. "It's been years, Clay." "I know." I rubbed a hand over my face. "But something isn't right." She didn't argue, because she felt it too. Then the tracks started appearing. At first, it was just a few claw marks in the dirt near the tree line. Deep, unnatural impressions, like something heavy had passed through. But then they got closer. One morning, I stepped outside and found them circling the damn house. These weren't old tracks. The snow hadn't had time to settle into them. Something had been here. Bo smelled them before I did. He crouched low, sniffing the disturbed snow, his lip curling slightly. He let out a low, guttural sound, something between a growl and a warning. I knelt down beside him, running my fingers through the indentations. The prints were large, too large to be a wolf. These claw marks were deep, almost like whatever made them had lingered, digging into the earth as it stood there. I gripped my rifle tighter. Something was coming. Bo became more aggressive. I'd never seen him like that before. He was always alert, always cautious, but this was different. One night, I found him standing at the porch steps, his breathing rapid, his fists clenched at his sides. His entire body trembled with restrained tension, his eyes locked onto something beyond the trees. I stepped beside him, rifle in hand, but I saw nothing. "What is it, Bo?" I muttered. He didn't respond. He didn't move. He just stared. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he let out a deep breath and stepped away, shaking his head, but his posture never fully relaxed. It was like he was preparing for something. Then came the night that changed everything. The air had that sharp, biting chill that came before autumn truly settled in. The fire crackled in the living room as Abigail flipped through a book, and I sat at the table, cleaning my rifle. Bo was outside, as he always was. Suddenly, everything went silent. The wind died. The insects stopped. Seconds later, Bo roared. Not just a warning, not just a sound of dominance. This was a war cry. I jumped to my feet, rifle in hand, as Abigail scrambled up beside me. My pulse pounded in my ears. I could hear something in the distance, the sounds of something moving through the woods. Shapes flickered between the trees, glowing eyes cutting through the darkness. 1, 2, 3, more. I felt my stomach drop. Abigail grabbed her rifle, her hands trembling slightly. "I see them," she said. Bo stood just beyond the porch, his massive frame silhouetted against the dark. His shoulders were squared, his breathing deep and steady. A pack of dogmen stepped into the clearing, not as big as the one Bo had killed before, but they didn't need to be, because there were 6 of them, and they were here for blood. I swallowed hard, gripping my rifle tighter. One of the dogmen snarled, and the world exploded into chaos. The moment the first dogman charged, Bo moved. He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He met them. His massive frame thundered across the dirt, slamming into the first dogman before it could even react. The impact sent the creature flying, slamming against a nearby tree. But there were 5 more. They swarmed. The second and third lunged together, one snapping at Bo's leg while the other went for his throat. Bo twisted, just barely dodging the bite, and sent his elbow crashing down on the one at his side. The beast yelped, but latched onto him anyway, claws ripping into his fur. Abigail fired first. The sound of her rifle split through the night, and one of the dogmen staggered back with a sharp, pained snarl. It wasn't a kill shot, but it was enough to make the thing think twice. I fired next. My bullet tore into another, sending it reeling, but just like before, these things were fast. Bo was in the thick of it now. His roars shook the air as he threw one of the dogmen down, his massive hands wrapping around its throat. He lifted it, snapping its spine in one brutal motion. But then the others were on him. One leapt onto his back, claws raking deep into his shoulder. Bo bellowed in pain, but before he could throw it off, another tackled his legs, bringing him down. "Get off of him," I yelled, firing another round. It was mayhem. 2 of the creatures peeled away from Bo and turned toward us. One was charging the porch. I barely had time to react before I fired. The bullet ripped into its chest, but it didn't stop. It staggered but kept coming. "Clay, move," Abigail screamed. I threw myself aside just as the beast slammed into the porch railing, its claws tearing deep gashes into the wood where I had just been standing. Abigail fired. The shot hit its leg, sending it stumbling. We were running out of ammo. I cursed under my breath, trying to reload, but my hands were shaking too much. He was losing. That didn't stop him from fighting like hell. One dogman had him by the arm, its jaws locked down, teeth sinking deep. Another was tearing into his side, claws raking open bloody wounds. Bo was still fighting, but I could see it now. His massive fists cracked bones, but there were too many. He fought hard, but it wasn't enough. One of them tackled him, slamming him to the ground. Another clamped its jaws around his throat. I tried to fire, but my rifle was empty. "Clay." Abigail's voice was desperate, but I could barely hear her. My heart was pounding, my vision tunneling. Bo was going to die. As I reached for my hunting knife, the trees shook. A deep, thunderous roar erupted from the forest. Louder than anything I had ever heard. It was deafening, rattling my bones, sending a wave of terror through my chest. Everything stopped. The Dogman froze. Bo, bloody and gasping, stared toward the tree line. Something barreled through the trees. Something massive. Something bigger than Bo. I stood in awe and fear. The creature emerged from the darkness, stepping into the clearing like a goddamn force of nature. It was a Sasquatch, but not just any Sasquatch. It was taller than Bo. Its fur was a mix of gray and brown, its muscles even thicker, its shoulders broader. It radiated power, the kind of presence that made even the Dogman hesitate. The moment it appeared, the Dogman changed. The snarls turned into whimpers, the confidence in their stance shattered. Even with their numbers, even with Bo bleeding at their feet, they were scared. The massive Sasquatch stepped forward, its deep-set eyes locking onto them. Then it roared again, and the world shook. Bo moved first. Wounded or not, he knew what had to be done. The pack scattered, but there was nowhere to run. Bo lunged at the nearest one, his massive fists crashing into its skull, sending it collapsing to the ground. The larger Sasquatch moved with insanely fast speed, grabbing another Dogman and slamming it into a tree with enough force to break its back. The remaining three tried to flee, but Bo and the other Sasquatch were faster. One was ripped apart in seconds. Another was thrown so hard it disappeared into the tree line. The last one barely made it past the clearing before the larger Sasquatch caught it. It didn't stand a chance. The Sasquatch grabbed the upper part of the Dogman's snout in one hand, lower part in the other, and pulled until its head separated in two different pieces. The battle was over. The ground was littered with bodies. The air smelled of blood. Bo turned and faced the Sasquatch. They stood there, staring at each other. Neither moved, neither communicated, but something passed between them. A moment of understanding, a connection. The larger Sasquatch lifted a hand, pressing it gently against Bo's shoulder. Bo didn't pull away. He did the same. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just another Sasquatch. This was his father. Abigail gripped my arm. "Clay," she whispered. That's his dad." I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because I could see it. The way they looked at each other. The recognition. The relief. Bo had spent his entire life alone. He had been taken from his mother, raised by us. But now, he was standing with his blood, his family, his father. The larger Sasquatch finally stepped back, his deep, wise eyes flickering toward me and Abigail. It was hard to tell how he felt by looking at us. But then, he did something I didn't expect. He nodded. A simple, slow nod. Not of hostility, not of warning, but of acknowledgement. Slowly, he turned, walking toward the trees. Bo watched him go. I could see the conflict in his face, the choice before him. His home was here, with us, but his blood was out there, in the forest. Bo stood there, staring into the trees for a long moment. He took a step forward, then another, and for a second, my heart clenched. Was this goodbye? Bo hesitated. After a couple seconds, he turned back to us, to his family, and stepped toward home. He wasn't leaving, not yet. The forest swallowed the larger Sasquatch, his massive form disappearing into the night. Something told me this wasn't the last time we'd see him. It had been 9 months since Bo and his father fought alongside me to protect our home. 9 months since I watched them tear through a pack of dogmen like they were born for war. And in truth, they were. Bo had changed since then. He still returned home every night, still sat beside Abigail on the porch and ate from the same spot he always did. But more and more, he spent his daylight hours deep in the woods with his father. They disappeared together every morning without a word. Sometimes he came back just before sunset, sometimes not until the moon was already high. I never questioned it, not at first. Bo was part of something older than us. I had come to understand that. But after a while, the feeling started to creep back, that slow, crawling unease in my chest, the one I used to feel before things went bad. I'd step outside in the evening and look out toward the tree line, and the wind would blow the wrong way. The stillness would sit too heavy on the trees. Abigail tried to keep me grounded. "He's just bonding with his father," she told me once. "They have years to make up for." She wasn't wrong, but I knew the forest, and I knew what it felt like when something was about to happen. Then one night, Bo didn't come home. I waited until the fire was nothing but glowing coals. Abigail eventually stood and rested her hand on my shoulder. "He's with him," she said softly. "He's okay." But I couldn't shake the feeling. The unease had become a drumbeat in my chest. I didn't say a word. I just stood up, grabbed my gear, and strapped my rifles across my back. Abigail followed me to the door. "You don't have to go after him. He's not a child anymore." "I know," I said, "but I need to know that he's okay." She hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful, please. I need you to stay with your sister, just until I get back. If something's wrong out there, I don't want you in harm's way." Her face tensed. "Okay." I watched her taillights vanish into the dark before I turned toward the woods. Tracking Bo and his father wasn't difficult. Their prints were fresh, deep from the soft soil left by the recent rain. Bo's were massive, his father's even larger. They moved deeper into the mountains, north, toward old-growth woods. No one ever went. I'd hunted these ridges for years and never stepped foot where they had gone. The hours passed like minutes. The trail wound through gullies and over mossy hills, deeper into silence. Even the birds were absent. The deeper I went, the more wrong the world felt. Time didn't feel right there. The forest was older, the air was still. The ground changed from dense brush to soft, dark earth. The trees parted, revealing something I never expected to see. A clearing, wide and quiet, and in the middle of it, rows and rows of stone mounds. Graves. They weren't human. They weren't recent. Some were shaped from massive slabs of stone. Others were simple, covered in moss and woven with vines, sunken into the earth with age. I counted dozens at first. Then I realized there were hundreds. This wasn't just a burial site. It was a cemetery, a sacred place. Standing near one of the graves, I saw them. Bo and his father. They were kneeling, silent. Bo's father placed a hand over one small, plain grave that was unmarked. Bo knelt beside him, his broad shoulders hunched. He didn't move. And I didn't move either. I just watched. It didn't take much to realize what I was seeing. This was his mother, and they were mourning. No words, no sound, just moving there, hands through the grave gently. A long while passed before they stood. Bo's father placed a hand on Bo's shoulder and pointed to the center of the clearing. There, rising from the middle of the cemetery, was a single massive tree. Gnarled and thick, twisted by age and weather. It looked as old as the mountains. The bark was dark gray, almost silver, and its roots spread in all directions, like veins. Bo followed his father toward it. Then Bo's father did something strange. He grabbed Bo's wrist and placed his hand against the trunk of the tree. The moment Bo's skin met the bark, he seized. His eyes fluttered, his body tensed. He dropped to one knee, gasping. Something was happening. The tree began to pulse, not literally, not like a heartbeat, but something radiated from it, like warmth through stone, like time itself moved through the bark. Bo twitched. He looked like he was in a trance. I stepped forward, slow, unsure. Bo's father turned and looked at me. He didn't growl or threaten. He just nodded. I reached them as Bo stood again, breathless. He looked at me, then took my hand in his massive grip and pressed it to the tree. Then everything changed. My vision exploded with light. And then, visions of a history I never knew existed. I saw Bigfoots, hundreds of them, waging war. They fought Dogman. They fought Wendigos. They fought creatures I didn't even have names for. Shadow things, twisted humans. Then I saw them, Nephilim, towering humanoid giants with black eyes and a hunger behind them that terrified me. The Bigfoots were guardians, protectors of the earth, warriors of balance, and they had been doing it for centuries. Some fell, some rose again, but they never stopped protecting. When the vision ended, I staggered backward, nearly collapsing. Bo caught me. His father steadied me. I knew now I wasn't just some hunter who stumbled into their world. I was part of it now. Raising Bo, fighting beside them, being bound to this sacred place. I wasn't ready for what came next. Bo's ears perked. His father turned sharply. Then came the sound. Chains, dragging, followed by a growl. Two dogmen stepped from the woods. Their eyes burned yellow, but their snarls were subdued. Around their necks hung thick, iron collars, heavy chains snaking back into the darkness. And behind them, a massive shape emerged, twice the size of Bo's father. A man, or something like it, skin like pale stone, muscles packed tight across his frame. His eyes, completely black, no whites, no iris, just endless dark. The Nephilim, a giant, real and alive, holding the chains. The dogmen tensed, foam frothing at their mouths. The giant released the chains. Bo stepped forward. His father growled. I raised my rifle, and the battle began. The chains hit the ground like a death knell. Then the dogman sprang forward. Bo's father was already moving, an explosion of muscle and fur. He slammed into the first dogman before it reached the burial mounds, gripping its throat and tossing it into a tree with enough force to split bark from trunk. Bo charged the second one, their bodies colliding with a thud that sent vibrations through the ground. The dogman snarled, its claws swiping across Bo's chest, but Bo was unfazed. He wrapped his arms around it and lifted, slamming it back first into the forest floor. I scrambled for cover behind one of the large stone mounds, unslinging my rifle and bracing against the dirt. The giant hadn't moved yet, just stood there, black eyes watching everything, with a kind of cruel patience. Then it took its first step forward. It was like a tree moving, slow, full of bad intentions, and inevitable. The two dogmen, staggered but not dead, circled around Bo and his father, trying to flank them again. But Bo didn't let up. He leapt higher than I'd ever seen and grabbed a branch nearly 15 feet up. He swung his body around it with a fluid motion that shouldn't have been possible for something his size. Then he launched himself off the tree, landing on the back of the dogman mid-sprint. They tumbled end over end, but Bo came out on top, fists pounding the beast's face until bone cracked under the force. His father didn't stay grounded either. He too disappeared into the trees. One moment on the forest floor, the next, a flash of fur in the branches above. He dropped down on the second Dogman like a meteor, both fists crashing into its shoulders with a crunch that echoed through the area. The Nephilim giant roared. It didn't sound like anything I'd heard before. It wasn't loud because of volume. It was loud because it felt like it was inside my head, a pressure that made my ears ring and my heart stutter. I steadied my rifle and fired. The bullet hit the thing dead in the chest and did nothing. It looked at me and started walking in my direction. Bo noticed. He turned, still breathing hard, and took off after the giant. He climbed another tree, this one thicker than the rest, using it like a launch point. Bo hurled himself at the giant's head, fists raised, mouth open in a silent roar. But the giant caught him, with one hand, midair. The thud of Bo's impact was muffled by the sound of bones groaning under pressure. The giant squeezed, trying to crush Bo like a child's toy. Bo thrashed, headbutting the thing across the face. It stumbled back, letting go. Bo dropped, landing on all fours before scrambling back to his feet. Bo's father charged next. He slammed his shoulder into the giant's gut, forcing it back, then clawed across its face with such force that strips of flesh tore loose. The giant didn't flinch. It grabbed Bo's father by the neck and threw him into a tree so hard the trunk cracked and toppled. I was already moving, repositioning behind another grave mound, switching to my second rifle. I lined up the scope and aimed for the giant's knee. This time, it stumbled, not much, but enough. Bo saw the opening. He rushed forward, climbing another tree. His father followed. Together, they lunged. They came down on the giant from both sides, Bo hitting the back of its head, his father hammering down on its shoulder. The sheer force of their combined weight knocked the giant down to the one knee I had just shot. I took another, right into the side of its face. It roared again, but this time it was different. It was angry. The giant slammed a fist into the ground, knocking Bo's father back, then turned and backhanded Bo across the face. The blow sent him flying into one of the ancient stones, the impact loud and sharp. Bo didn't get up. I fired again. Nothing. The giant started toward him. "No," I muttered. "Not like this." I broke cover, sprinting across the clearing, rifle in hand. My boots thundered over moss and bone, and I raised the rifle and fired 2 shots into the giant's side. It turned. Then suddenly, a Dogman tackled me. The weight drove the wind from my lungs. I hit the ground hard, rifle skidding across the earth. The Dogman snapped at my throat, its teeth inches from my skin. I got my forearm up just in time, and it bit down. The pain was unbearable. I screamed and struggled as I used my other hand to get to my sidearm. Once I got it, I put it directly under the Dogman's head, pressing hard against it. I pulled the trigger in rapid succession. It jerked once, twice, then went still. Blood poured from my arm as I rolled the thing off me, gasping. Bo was back on his feet now, face twisted in fury. He jumped at the Nephilim, grabbing its shoulders, and swung himself around its back. He locked his arm around the giant's neck, clinging like a lion bringing down prey. Bo's father came in from the front. He roared, climbed the giant like a tree, and began hammering both fists into its face. One after another, relentless. The giant buckled, then slowly dropped to the ground like a building falling over. Bo leapt free just in time, and his father landed on its chest, driving a final blow into its skull that echoed across the forest like a thunderclap. The giant stopped moving. The second Dogman tried to flee, but Bo's father caught it with a tree branch, swinging like a club and shattering its spine. Silence returned. Bo turned to me, his eyes wild, then they softened. He ran to my side and dropped to his knees. His father was behind him. I clutched my bleeding arm, my breath shallow. "It's all right," I rasped. "It's just a bite." I blacked out. When I woke, I was being carried. Bo had me over his shoulder. His father trailed closely behind, scanning the trees for threats with every step. They were taking me home. My vision swam in and out, but I could hear the wind and the sound of Bo's breathing, and I knew I was safe. Hours passed, maybe more. When they laid me down on my porch, I could smell the pine, could see the stars. Bo's father looked at me for a long while. Then he turned and disappeared into the woods. Bo stayed, staying close the entire time. The next morning, with my arm bound and stiff, I reached for the phone. Abigail answered on the first ring. "Clay?" She let out a breath. "Are you okay?" "I'm alive, but I've got something to tell you." I looked at Bo, crouched at the edge of the woods. At the world I thought I understood, now so much larger than I'd ever imagined. "This goes back further than I thought," I said, "and I think we're a part of it now." I couldn't sleep. Not after what happened at the ancient burial ground. The image of that giant, its cold black eyes staring into my soul. The way it moved like something not bound by the same rules as us. The way it had commanded those dogmen, and the way Bo and his father fought like they were born for it. Guardians, protectors, but protectors from what? There was too much I didn't understand. Too much that felt bigger than just our family. Abigail tried to comfort me when I finally got home. She cleaned and dressed my arm, telling me over and over how glad she was I was safe. Bo wouldn't leave my side, his massive form hunched beside my chair, dark eyes never leaving the window. Even his presence, as comforting as it usually was, couldn't shake the feeling gnawing at the back of my mind. After a few days, I couldn't stand not knowing anymore. I needed answers, and I knew just the person to ask. There was an old man who lived on the reservation outskirts, a respected elder named Chief Samuel Black Elk. I'd seen him a few times at the feed store, heard stories of his wisdom and his knowledge of the old ways. People spoke of him with a kind of reverence, saying he could see the truth in the world, even the parts hidden from most eyes. If anyone knew about the creatures roaming the mountains, it was him. The next morning, I loaded up the truck and made the drive out. The reservation was quiet, the air crisp with the morning chill. I parked near a small house surrounded by dream catchers fluttering in the wind. Feathers danced in the breeze, and the faint smell of sage lingered in the air. As I approached, Samuel was already on the porch, sitting in a worn wooden chair, carving a piece of wood. His dark eyes met mine, calm and piercing. It felt like he already knew why I was there. "Mr. Silva," he greeted without looking up from his carving. "I had a feeling you'd come." I nodded, unsure how to begin. "Chief Black Elk, I need answers." He gestured for me to sit. I took the steps up and lowered myself onto the porch. He didn't rush me, just kept working on the carving. I couldn't help but notice the precision of his hands, despite the years etched into his knuckles. "I've seen things," I finally said. "Things I can't explain. Creatures, giants, dogmen, Bigfoot." Samuel nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting this. He set the carving down and looked out at the mountains, the same way Bo did sometimes, like he was seeing something beyond what was visible. "This is ancient land," he began, older than you or I can imagine, and it has always been a place of balance. Light and dark, peace and war. And those creatures you speak of, they've been here as long as the trees and rivers. What are they? I asked. And why are they fighting? Samuel turned to me, eyes hardening. Once, long ago, my people and the Bigfoot, what you call Sasquatch or Bo, lived in harmony. They were guardians, protectors of the land. We worked together to keep the balance, but not all of them remained on the path of peace. I looked at him with confusion. How do you know about Bo? Samuel looked at me with a knowing smile. I know everything that goes on in these parts, especially when it comes to the otherworldly. When you take a step into that world, it doesn't go unnoticed. You fought beside him. That alone tells me much. I didn't know how to respond. He wasn't just guessing. He knew. And it wasn't just from gossip. Samuel continued, the lines on his face deepening. There were those who turned away from their duty, corrupted by evil. Their eyes changed, blood red, their fur darkened. They teamed up with Dogman and other dark beings, giants, wendigos, twisted cryptids. They became creatures of chaos, no longer protectors but destroyers. I had a flashback, remembering the look in that giant's eyes. You're Bigfoot, Samuel continued. He is one of the good ones, a protector. But there are others, darker, twisted cousins, who fight for dominance. These corrupted Bigfoot radiate evil. And once you see them, you'll know. There's no mistaking the hate in their eyes. I nodded, digesting it all. The giant, it looked human, but wasn't. It controlled the Dogman. Samuel's expression darkened. Nephilim, descendants of the ancient giants. Some survived the great floods. They are cunning, cruel, and they see this world as theirs to reclaim. They command the Dogman and the corrupted Bigfoot. And now, they know you. My heart pounded. You're part of this now, Clay. Your scent, your presence, by fighting alongside the good Bigfoot, you've declared yourself an ally. They will come for you and your family. You can either leave these lands or join the fight. I didn't hesitate. I am not running. I'll fight. Samuel's lips curled into a slight smile. That's what I thought you'd say. There's a group of my people who still honor the old ways. Warriors who team up with the good Bigfoot to patrol the lands and protect against the corrupted. I'll introduce you. The next week, I met them. 4 men, all tough as nails, armed to the teeth. Each one had that quiet confidence that came from surviving the impossible. They called themselves the Guardian Unit. Leading them was Daniel Two Crows, a man with scars across his face and an intensity in his eyes that told me he'd seen more than his fair share of nightmares. Beside him were Mikey Running Wolf, Tom Iron Elk, and Jesse Whitebear. They were no strangers to the Cryptid War. That night, Samuel spoke with them and me around a small campfire. He told me of the latest threat, an evil Bigfoot that had been seen deep in the woods, dragging off people from nearby campsites. When they were found, weeks later, their bodies were mutilated beyond recognition. The authorities labeled them animal attacks. But Samuel knew the truth. It's not just the Bigfoot, Daniel said. Dogman sightings too. Something's stirring them up. We need to find it and end it before more people die. Bo and his father stood at the edge of the camp, listening. I knew they understood. Bo's father gave a low, rumbling growl, one that Daniel nodded to in respect. "I'll go with you," I said, and the others didn't protest. "You can shoot?" Mikey, running wolf, asked. I just gave him a look that made him grin. We set out at dawn. The sky was blood red, the wind colder than usual. I had my 2 rifles, my sidearm, and enough ammo to last a battle. The unit moved like shadows, silent. Bo and his father followed from the trees, always watching. We trekked deeper into the forest, beyond the burial ground. The air grew thicker, colder. The ground changed, softer, like something rotted just beneath the surface. After hours of walking, we found the first sign, a massive footprint, too large to be Bo's. The edges were still soft, recent. Suddenly, the smell hit us like wet fur and rot. Jesse gagged, covering his mouth. "We're close," Daniel whispered. We moved in a tight formation, rifles up, eyes scanning the trees. Bo and his father stayed to the shadows, their massive forms blending in with the dense forest. Then, just ahead, we heard it. A growl, not deep like a dogman, but rougher, more guttural. The kind of sound that made your instincts scream at you to run. We moved forward, slow and cautious, and that's when we seen it. The dark shape moved between the trees, massive, hunched, and darker than the shadows around it. Blood-red eyes glared at us through the branches. Something else stepped out beside it, a dogman, but the real horror came next. From the thickest part of the woods stepped something I couldn't comprehend. A hybrid, something that looked like a cross between Dogman and Bigfoot. It stood there, hunched and massive, its presence like a nightmare dragged from the darkest parts of the forest. The hybrid was grotesque. Its fur was a tangled mess of coarse, dark hair, almost black with streaks of gray. The body was built like a Sasquatch, thick, muscular, towering, but the head and face were unmistakably Dogman. It was taller than Bo's father, but leaner, built for speed and brutality. It moved like a beast that had adapted both strength and agility, its movements unnaturally fluid for its size. Its muzzle was elongated, lips pulled back in a snarl that revealed jagged teeth dripping with saliva. Bloodshot red eyes glared at us with a fury I'd never seen before. Massive clawed hands hung low to the ground, and its legs were muscular but bent backward like a wolf's, giving it a predatory stance. The muscles rippled under its matted fur, and its claws scraped against the ground as it crouched, preparing to lunge. A sense of pure malevolence radiated from it, like it didn't just want to kill, it wanted to dominate, to tear apart anything in its path. I felt a chill crawl up my back as its gaze locked onto mine. The evil Bigfoot to its left let out a rumbling growl, while the dogman bared its fangs. Daniel swore under his breath. I've heard stories about hybrids, but I didn't think they were real. The hybrid dropped onto all fours, its movements unnervingly wolf-like. It sniffed the air, its massive chest rising and falling with each breath. The beast's red eyes never left us, calculating and predatory. I could feel the tension in the air, so thick I could almost taste it. "Clay, get to cover," Daniel hissed. I scrambled behind a fallen log, raising my rifle and lining up the scope. The hybrid let out a scream that was a mix of a howl and a roar, a sound that rattled my bones. The combination of the dogman's ferocity and the Sasquatch power created a noise that was both unnatural and terrifying. It moved like a black blur, rushing straight for Bo. Bo braced himself, planting his feet and roaring back. Just as the hybrid lunged, Bo sidestepped and struck it across the face with a brutal backhand, but it didn't even slow down. The hybrid spun, using its momentum to slash at Bo's side with one of its massive claws. Bo roared in pain, blood splattering the ground. Bo's father charged the Dogman, grappling with it, while the evil Bigfoot circled around, looking for an opening. I fired at the evil Bigfoot, hitting it in the shoulder. It snarled and turned on me, but before it could charge, Bo's father lunged, knocking it off balance. The hybrid was relentless. It circled Bo, darting in and out with lightning-fast strikes. Bo managed to catch it by the arm, twisting hard enough to break the bone, but the hybrid didn't react to the pain. It sank its teeth into Bo's shoulder, tearing at the flesh. Daniel fired, hitting the hybrid in the back. The beast didn't even flinch. "Shoot the joints," Mikey shouted. "Slow it down." The Guardian units spread out, firing in controlled bursts, aiming for the creature's knees and elbows. One bullet caught the hybrid in the knee, and it stumbled just enough for Bo to land a heavy blow to its head, sending it skidding backward. Bo's father let out a roar of warning, and I saw why. A second Dogman was rushing in from the trees. Jesse barely had time to react before the creature tackled him, clawing at his chest. Bo's father moved like a boulder, smashing into the Dogman and sending it sprawling. The hybrid didn't stay down. It leapt back to its feet, shaking off the hit like it was nothing. Bo took advantage of the momentary pause to scramble up a nearby tree. He climbed high, moving faster than I'd ever seen, and positioned himself on a thick branch. Bo's father saw what he was doing and did the same on the opposite side, climbing another tree, their movements mirroring each other. The hybrid, unaware of the ambush, focused on Daniel and Tom, who were laying down suppressive fire. Then Bo jumped. He crashed onto the hybrid from above, both hands clasped together like a sledgehammer, driving the creature face first into the ground. The hybrid screeched, thrashing wildly, but Bo didn't let go. He wrapped his massive arms around its neck, trying to choke it out. But the hybrid didn't fight fair. Its body contorted unnaturally, bending backward to slash at Bo's face with its claws. Bo reared back, momentarily stunned. The hybrid broke free, and just as it was about to retaliate, Bo's father dropped down from the other side, landing squarely on its back. The force drove the hybrid to its knees. Seizing the opportunity, I took aim and fired at the creature's other knee. The bullet punched through, and the hybrid howled in pain, its leg buckling. "Keep it down," Daniel shouted, but the hybrid wasn't giving up. It clawed at Bo's father, landing a brutal hit to his ribs, forcing him to let go. It whipped around, its bloodshot eyes fixing on me. The evil Bigfoot made another charge, but Bo intercepted it, tackling it to the ground and raining down blows. The hybrid saw its ally struggling and let out a sound that almost resembled words. A deep, terrifying rasp that seemed to command the evil Bigfoot to retreat. The Dogman that had attacked Jesse was already dead, its skull caved in from Bo's father's brutal fists. But the hybrid didn't seem concerned. It locked eyes with me, teeth bared. All of a sudden, a sound came from the tree line. A different roar, one deeper, almost hollow. The hybrid froze. The evil Bigfoot snarled in confusion. A massive shape appeared. Another Sasquatch, older, grayer. Bo's father growled, recognizing it. The new Sasquatch stared at the hybrid, as if daring it to make a move. The hybrid hesitated, then made a decision I didn't expect. It howled, a long, mournful sound, and the evil Bigfoot responded, both of them retreating into the forest. We didn't chase. We couldn't. The battle had taken its toll. Bo was bleeding from several deep cuts, and his father was nursing a bruised side. Daniel and Mikey checked on Jesse, whose chest was clawed up but still breathing. "That thing," Tom muttered, shaking his head. "What the hell was it?" "A mistake," Samuel's voice came from behind us, calm and grave. He had followed the sounds of the fight, arriving just as it ended. A creation of darkness, a merging of two evils. I didn't think it was possible. I leaned against a tree, my arm throbbing. It wasn't natural. It was like something made it. Samuel nodded. There are those among the Nephilim who experiment fusing beings to create something more deadly. We thought it was just a legend. Seems we were wrong. Bo limped over to me, his eyes full of concern. I gave him a tired smile. "You did good, big guy. Real good." The older Sasquatch that had appeared moments before lingered at the edge of the clearing, sharing a glance with Bo's father. There was no hostility between them, only respect. Daniel cleaned the wound on Jesse's chest, muttering about how lucky we were that thing didn't tear us all to pieces. I couldn't help but agree. The hybrid. It was something entirely new. Something we weren't ready for. "We need to regroup," Samuel said, his tone serious. "If they can make hybrids like that, we're dealing with more than just scattered evil. This is organized." The forest settled back into uneasy silence. The scent of blood still hung in the air. Bo sat beside me, exhausted but vigilant. His father stayed close, keeping watch. I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The hybrid had gotten away, and I had the sinking feeling we'd be seeing it again. Stronger, more dangerous than before. As we made our way back to camp, I couldn't shake the image of those red eyes. The way they stared at me, almost as if they knew me. This war wasn't just about the land anymore. It was about us, and we weren't done fighting. I didn't hear the boulder until it was too late. The crash was deafening. Glass exploded inward, sending shards flying across the room. Abigail shot upright in bed, eyes wide with terror. The boulder landed in the center of our living room, crushing the coffee table like it was made of paper. A second later, a roar tore through the night. Not just any roar. The one I couldn't forget. The one that haunted my dreams since the night in the forest. The hybrid. Bo's answering roar came from outside. Deep, ferocious, challenging. An instant later, his father's bellow joined in. "They found us," I whispered, already scrambling out of bed. Abigail didn't waste time asking questions. She darted to the closet, yanking open the locked cabinet where we kept the firearms. I grabbed my rifle, my sidearm, and as much ammo as I could strap to my belt. I looked at Abigail, her face pale but determined. "Stay close to me," I said. She nodded, loading her high-powered rifle, her hands steady despite the chaos. I pulled my phone from my pocket, dialing Chief Samuel Black Elk as fast as I could. He picked up after the first ring. "Chief, it's Clay," I whispered, trying not to panic. "The hybrid found us. It's here, along with something else. We need backup, now." Samuel's voice was steady, calm despite my frantic tone. "Hold your ground. We're coming. Stay alive." I ended the call and looked out the shattered window. Bo and his father were already out in the yard, facing the tree line. Shadows shifted in the darkness, too large to be anything but what we feared. A shape moved from the trees, massive, rotting, hunched. The hybrid stepped into the open, its dark fur bristling, bloodshot eyes fixated on the house. But that wasn't the worst of it. Beside it, another figure emerged. An evil Bigfoot, even darker and more menacing than the ones we had fought before. Its eyes glowed a sinister red, and then the forest itself seemed to come alive, the trees shifting and parting as something else moved into view. It walked on two legs, towering and gaunt, with massive antlers spreading from its skull. Its skin was pale and rotted, patches of fur clinging to its skeletal frame. The Wendigo. Its jaws hung open, revealing sharp, yellowed teeth, and its eyes burned with a sickly green light. My stomach turned. 3 of them, all massive. We were outnumbered, outmatched. The hybrid threw back its head and screamed. A sound that pierced the night. Bo and his father answered, but I could tell even they knew this was different. The hybrid charged. Bo met it halfway, slamming into the beast with a force that shook the ground. They grappled, the hybrid's claws digging into Bo's arms as Bo roared in defiance. Bo's father charged the evil Bigfoot, and the two collided in a brutal melee of fists and claws. The Wendigo hung back, its hollow eyes watching with eerie calm. I didn't trust that thing for a second. It looked like a corpse brought to life, with patches of fur matted and falling off, revealing sickly pale flesh beneath. Its antlers looked cracked and ancient, like they belonged on a long-dead beast, not something still breathing. "Clay, there," Abigail shouted. The Wendigo suddenly lunged, moving faster than expected. I fired, but the bullet barely seemed to slow it down. It was headed right for Bo's father. Before I could fire again, a flash of movement caught my eye. The hybrid had broken free of Bo's grip and was barreling toward the house. "Abigail, move," I shouted, shoving her behind the counter. The hybrid's claw tore through the wall, narrowly missing Abigail's head. I fired point blank into its side, but the beast hardly noticed, its glowing red eyes fixed on me. Before it could strike again, Bo tackled it from the side, driving it back out through the hole it had made. They crashed into the yard, rolling and trading blows. Abigail steadied her rifle and fired a clean shot at the evil Bigfoot, hitting it in the shoulder. It snarled and turned toward us, but Bo's father wasn't letting it near the house. He grappled it, pushing it back toward the trees. The Wendigo moved with unnatural grace, circling behind Bo's father while he fought. Abigail noticed it before I did. "Look out," she screamed. The Wendigo lunged, its antlers aiming for Bo's father's back. Without thinking, I fired. The bullet hit the antler, splintering part of it, but not stopping the charge. Then Abigail took her shot. A perfect, calculated shot. The bullet slammed into the Wendigo's eye, causing it to stagger back with a shriek of pain. Bo's father reacted quickly, ripping off one of the broken antlers and stabbing it deep into the Wendigo's side. The monster wailed, thrashing wildly. Bo's father didn't stop. He tore the other antler free, slamming it into the creature's head over and over until the Wendigo fell back, twitching and lay still. But there was no time to celebrate. The hybrid roared, slashing Bo across the chest and sending him sprawling. It turned toward the house, eyes locked on Abigail. Before I could react, it reached through the window, its massive hand grabbing her ankle. "No!" I screamed, grabbing at her. The hybrid yanked her through the shattered frame, dragging her across the yard. Abigail screamed, kicking and fighting. I fired twice, but the hybrid was too fast, hauling her toward the tree line. Bo let out a sound I'd never heard, pure, raw rage. He bounded into a tree, using the height to his advantage. I lost sight of him for a second, and then he dropped like a comet, landing squarely on the hybrid's back, his massive arms wrapping around its neck. The impact sent both of them crashing to the ground, Abigail rolling free. I rushed to her side, pulling her away as Bo and the hybrid fought, their bodies rolling and slamming against the ground. Claws tore into fur, teeth snapped at throats. Bo wouldn't let go, even when the hybrid raked its claws down his back, drawing lines of crimson. Abigail clutched my arm, shaking but alive. The hybrid bucked, throwing Bo off, and lunged at us again. I fired my pistol, the shot grazing its cheek, but it didn't slow. Just as it was about to reach us, Bo's father barreled into it from the side, slamming it into the side of the house. The hybrid scrambled to its feet, bleeding and wild. Bo joined his father, both of them circling the creature, cutting off its escape. A sudden sound made us all pause. The roar of engines. The Guardian unit had arrived. Relief washed over me like a flood. The evil Bigfoot tried to charge the Guardian unit while they were still in their trucks, but Abigail took aim, her breathing steady despite the chaos. She fired once, twice, 3 times. The shots hit the evil Bigfoot in the head. The creature's skull caved in, and its head was nearly severed from its body. It collapsed, dead before it hit the ground. Daniel, Mikey, Tom, and Jesse jumped out of the trucks, rifles at the ready. They moved with the precision of men who had fought these battles before, coordinated, focused. The hybrid snarled at the new arrivals, its red eyes darting between the approaching squad and Bo. It knew it was now outnumbered. For a second, it almost seemed to hesitate. Then it let out a piercing roar, the kind that felt like it was vibrating my bones, and started backing toward the tree line. "Surround it," Daniel shouted, gesturing for his men to fan out. "Don't let it escape." Bo and his father didn't need orders. They moved as if they had fought in formation their whole lives. Bo's father took the left flank, Bo the right, and the Guardians spread out to cover the hybrid's escape routes. But just as it seemed cornered, the hybrid made a desperate move. It lunged at Bo with a vicious swipe. Bo ducked, but the hybrid anticipated it, spinning around and slamming its fist into Bo's side. Bo staggered, but his father was on the hybrid in an instant, grappling with it and trying to pin it down. The hybrid roared and twisted free, but before it could fully regain its balance, Jesse fired a shot that clipped its leg. The beast let out a snarl, momentarily stunned. Tom moved in closer, taking careful aim. "We can't let it get away this time," he called out. The hybrid seemed to realize it was losing ground. With a feral growl, it dropped to all fours and lunged toward the tree line, its movements unnaturally fast. Bo's father chased after it, but it was too quick, weaving between the trees and disappearing into the darkness. "Damn it!" Daniel cursed, lowering his rifle. I watched the shadows, waiting for it to reappear, but the night had swallowed it whole. "Where's Abigail?" Daniel asked, looking around. "She's safe," I panted, pointing back toward the porch where she was catching her breath. Bo was beside her, protective as ever. Jesse knelt by the remains of the Wendigo, nudging it with his boot. "You ever see one of these up close?" "No," Mikey replied, his voice tense. "And I hope I never do again." Bo's father walked back toward the house, his steps slower than usual. I noticed a deep gash on his shoulder, bleeding but not life-threatening. Bo gave him a once-over, sniffing at the wound with a low, concerned rumble. "Clay," Abigail called softly. "Are you okay?" I pulled her into a tight hug. "Yeah, you?" She nodded against my chest, still shaking. "That thing, it was dragging me. I thought. It's gone now," I reassured her, though I wasn't sure how long that would be true. Chief Samuel arrived a few minutes later, his expression grave as he took in the scene. He stepped over the torn-up dirt and scattered debris, eyeing the damage. "They've never attacked this boldly before," I said. Samuel nodded, his face stern. "This is different." They're growing more aggressive. I looked back toward the tree line where the hybrid had vanished. It's not just aggression. It's like that hybrid was looking for something. Or someone. Samuel's gaze sharpened. What do you mean? I hesitated, trying to find the right words. When it looked at me, it felt personal, like it knew me. Abigail glanced at me, confusion and fear flickering across her face. Why would it target you specifically? I don't know, I admitted. But I can't shake the feeling that this hybrid, it's not just any creature. There's something about it that feels familiar, Samuel finished for me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The thought made me feel uneasy. Daniel interrupted, pointing to the remains of the Wendigo. You want us to burn it, Chief? Samuel nodded. It's not safe to leave it here. The scent will attract more. Jesse and Mikey began gathering kindling, while Tom poured gasoline over the corpse. I watched, feeling a strange sense of finality as the flames roared to life. The Wendigo's twisted form cracked and hissed as it burned. Bo's father growled low, clearly uneasy with the fire, but Bo stood his ground, eyes fixed on the blaze. Why did they attack us like this? Abigail asked, her voice trembling. Samuel took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing. Something is stirring them up. This level of coordination is uncommon. Dogmen, Wendigos, corrupted Bigfoot. They don't usually work together this consistently, unless something far more dangerous is commanding them. Like that giant, I said. The Nephilim. Yes, Samuel agreed. But it's not just the giant. There's a greater force at play here. And if they found this place, they'll be back. Bo let out a soft grunt, rubbing his shoulder where the hybrid had clawed him. Abigail moved closer, checking his wound despite his reluctant huff. We can't just keep waiting for them to attack us, I said. We have to take the fight to them. Samuel looked thoughtful. There's one place they might be coming from. A place older than any of us. If they're gathering forces, it would be there. Where? Daniel asked, wiping the sweat from his brow. Hollow Earth, Samuel replied, his tone grave. Silence settled over the yard. I had heard legends about it. Stories about a world beneath our world. A place teeming with ancient creatures and civilizations, lost to time. It's real? I asked, trying to make sense of it. Samuel nodded. It's real, and there's an entrance somewhere deep in the Montana wilderness. If the Nephilim are trying to establish dominance again, it will start there. That's their home. Abigail's grip tightened on my arm. You're saying we have to go down there. If we want to stop this, Samuel said, we have to cut them off at the source. We can't keep fighting skirmishes while they regroup and strengthen. We have to strike at the heart. Daniel looked at the remnants of our yard, the broken branches and the tracks in the dirt. If they're gathering forces, this hybrid is just the beginning. They'll keep coming. Bo grunted, clearly eager for a fight. His father nodded in agreement, his gaze unwavering. I couldn't help but glance back at the darkness where the hybrid had vanished. There was something about the way it looked at me, like it was hunting me specifically. The thought chilled me. Samuel put a hand on my shoulder. Whatever that hybrid is, it sees you as a threat. Or worse, an obstacle. I sat quiet for a couple of seconds. Whatever problem it has with me, I'll solve it in Hollow Earth. Samuel gave a slow nod. Then we will gather our strength. Because once we enter Hollow Earth, there's no guarantee we will make it back. I glanced back at the shadows, where the hybrid had vanished. I couldn't shake that feeling. The one that told me this was personal. That creature wasn't just after anyone. It was after me. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. Weeks had gone by since the last attack. Abigail and I tried to keep things normal, whatever that even meant now. We restocked ammo, reinforced the house, and took turns watching the tree line. Bo and his father had been disappearing into the woods more often lately. Sometimes they were gone from sunrise to nightfall, always quiet when they returned, always alert. I never asked what they were doing. I figured I already knew. Some part of me appreciated that they came back at all. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hybrid, not just its claws or size or red eyes. The way it looked at me stuck harder than anything else. Intent, unblinking, like it recognized something in me I didn't even know was there. I used to talk to Abigail about it, about that stare, about the dreams that started creeping in after. But I stopped. She already had enough on her shoulders. I saw it in the way she sat up at night just listening, and how her hand always hovered close to her rifle when something shifted outside. She was carrying the weight in her own way, so I kept the rest to myself. The dreams were always the same. I was standing in front of a massive stone gate carved into a cliffside. The trees around it looked dead. Blood ran down the symbols on the stone. My blood. I felt it, knew it. The door was pulsing. Something behind it was breathing, violently, steady, like it had been waiting a long time. One morning, just past sunrise, headlights broke through the trees. Chief Samuel Black Elk's truck rolled into the clearing. Inside were 4 members of the Guardian unit, geared up and silent, eyes scanning everything, like they were expecting a fight at any second. Bo, his father, and the massive Guardian Sasquatch that was alongside Chief Samuel Black Elk before, emerged seconds later from the woods, stepping quietly out from between the trees like shadows taking shape. I stepped outside with my rifle slung across my chest. Samuel looked me over and gave a single nod. That was all. It was time. I turned to grab my gear, but Abigail was already at the door, jacket on, boots laced, rifle in hand. "If you're heading to that place," she said, "I'm coming too." I stared at her. "It's going to be dangerous." "I know. I mean real dangerous, like we might not come back." "Then we don't come back," she said. "But I'm not letting you go without me." I tried again, quieter. "You've done more than enough if something happened to you." She stepped closer. "I'm not asking for permission. I stood on that porch and fought beside you. I killed one of those things myself. If you think I'm staying behind while you walk into whatever this is, you've lost your mind." I looked at her for a long time, then I nodded. When we stepped outside, Samuel didn't question it. Just nodded at her too, like he already knew what kind of fire she had in her. She was one tough-ass woman. We loaded up and left that morning. Me, Abigail, Samuel, and the Guardian unit. Following close through the woods, Bo, his father, and the towering Guardian who moved like part of the forest itself. We headed north. Roads turned to trails. Trails turned to nothing. The deeper we got, the quieter everything became. Abigail didn't complain once. She stayed steady on her feet, eyes sharp, gear tight on her shoulders. She belonged here, even now, even among creatures older than any human memory, alongside warriors who defended this land for thousands of years against the unknown. On the second day, we reached a clearing. That's where we found the remnants. Bones, scattered and cracked, some scorched. There was tufts of black and gray fur, stained with dried blood. The air was wrong, still, but not calm. Bo stopped moving. His father stood beside him like a statue, both of them looking at what was left. A clan had lived here, good Sasquatch. I could tell from the way Bo crouched over one of the bodies. His head low, shoulders drawn tight. He wasn't just angry, he was mourning. Samuel moved quietly between the remains. He knelt and touched the soil. "They were ambushed," he said. Abigail lowered her rifle and stayed close to me. We helped where we could. We gathered what bones we could find, dug shallow graves beneath the trees, and buried them in silence. No one spoke during that part. It didn't feel right to say anything. After the burial, we found carvings on nearby stones. Symbols like the ones I had seen in my dreams, but they were warped and twisted, like something had tried to copy ancient words without understanding them. Bo and his father both growled when they saw them. Samuel crouched down and ran a hand across the stone. "These symbols are warnings," he said. "But they're not from the good ones. Corruption, markings from something darker, proof that what we were chasing had already spread its roots further than we knew." We pushed deeper into the wild. The trees grew strange. Not just taller, but older, like they had been left untouched for longer than anything should. The air grew colder, the sky dimmed. We climbed into ravines, crossed ice-cold streams, and followed paths only Samuel could see. No map would help here. The forest itself seemed to lead us where it wanted us to go. By day 3, the trees opened into a glade. At the center stood a wall of stone wrapped in vines and moss. The gate, 30 feet tall, 15 feet wide, covered in ancient carvings. Symbols that spiraled across the surface like veins. In the center was a seal, circular and familiar. I recognized it the second I laid eyes on it. It was the same one from my dreams. Bo moved first, pulling vines away, revealing more of the gate. Abigail joined him without hesitation. Samuel kept his eyes on the woods. He was listening for something. "This is it," he said. "The entrance to hollow earth." I stepped forward slowly. My hand hovered just above the seal. It felt cold, heavier than stone should ever feel. When I pressed my palm against it, nothing happened. No glow, no hum, just stone. All of a sudden, Bo stopped moving. He stared at the tree line. His father took a step forward, a low growl vibrating in his chest. Something was coming. Branches snapped and leaves shifted. That's when they appeared. 8 corrupted Sasquatch. Bigger, meaner, twisted, grotesque. Standing behind them was the hybrid. Its eyes locked onto mine. Behind the hybrid, the trees cracked open again. Something stepped out. A giant, bigger than the last one we encountered. The hybrid dropped down to all fours and charged towards Bo. It slammed into Bo like a linebacker. They tore through the clearing, a tangle of muscle and fury, knocking down young trees as they crashed into the dark. Abigail and I opened fire, while Bo's father charged in, but one of the corrupted Sasquatch intercepted him. It swung a thick arm, knocking him off his feet and sending him skidding through the snow. I fired 3 rounds into its ribs. The thing barely flinched. The ground shook again. The giant stepped out of the trees. Even after everything I'd seen, it didn't look real. It had the shape of a man, but nothing moved like it should. Every step pushed the ground in. Its muscles bulged like they were straining against its own skin, which looked pale and stretched tight like parchment. Thick black veins pulsed beneath the surface, and its eyes, pitch black, held no whites, like this thing had no soul. It moved slowly, scanning the battlefield like it already owned it. Bo's father fought to get to his feet, while Abigail and I dropped 2 corrupted beasts. Samuel stood a few feet behind me, calm but focused. He always looked steady, but even he tensed at the sight of that thing. Then I heard Bo scream. I turned to see him pinned under the hybrid. It had him by the shoulder, clawing deep. Bo kicked and twisted, but he was bleeding badly, and it was dragging him toward the tree line. I raised my rifle, but the hybrid moved too fast. Just then, the sky lit up with red flares. Gunfire echoed across the ridge above. Dozens of figures in black tactical gear poured down the slope, silent and efficient. Their weapons weren't standard issue. They were advanced, heavy, and precise. No insignias, no markings, no shouting. Just clean, calculated movement. One of the corrupted Sasquatch took 3 headshots before it even had time to react. Another exploded as a grenade cracked against its chest. The battlefield lit up with fire and steel. "What the hell?" I muttered. Samuel stood still, watching the newcomers. He didn't move, didn't blink. These guys fought like they'd done this before. Abigail pulled Bo behind cover while I laid down suppressing fire. I dropped one of the beasts with a neck shot. The hybrid snarled and vanished into the trees. That's when we heard it. A roar that didn't sound like anything else. It was older, heavier, like the forest itself was answering back. Even the corrupted stopped, even the giant turned. And then the trees split. It stepped out of the darkness like a god made of earth and bone. Taller than anything I'd seen. Bigger than Bo's father. Its fur was braided, its chest scarred with old battle marks, and its arms looked like they could snap trees in half. Its eyes weren't savage. They were ancient, like they had watched centuries pass in silence. It was a Sasquatch like I've never seen before. Damn near as big as the giant itself. Everything went still. Then it locked eyes with the giant and charged. They crashed together like storms colliding. The ground heaved under their weight. The Ancient One grabbed the giant's throat, slamming it back, but the giant spun and threw him straight through a tree, which exploded into splinters. Bo tried to stand again, but collapsed to a knee. Abigail knelt beside him, trying to stop the bleeding, her rifle resting across her lap. And then I saw him. A warrior named Tohi. He stepped through the haze like something out of legend. His face was streaked with war paint, black and red, smeared across his cheeks like claw marks. A tattered cloak made of wolfskins hung from his shoulders, swaying in the wind. Bits of bone, fur, and old feathers clung to the folds like trophies from another life. He didn't speak, didn't even blink. He raised his bow. Some say he was raised by Sasquatch, molded by their silence, sharpened by the wild. I don't know if that's true. All I know is the forest seemed to part for him. Tohi loosed 2 arrows without a sound. One struck a corrupted Sasquatch straight through the eye. The second drove into the throat of another. Before their bodies hit the snow, he vanished again, slipping back into the trees like smoke. He didn't belong to this world or theirs. He walked between them, a shadow with perfect aim. The reinforcements kept pressing. One of them hurled a net laced with crackling electricity over a beast, dropping it instantly. Another fired a rifle that sounded more like thunder than gunfire. These weren't just soldiers. They were something else entirely. The ancient Sasquatch stood again, panting, blood running down his side. The giant swung a tree trunk like a club, but the old one ducked under, caught it mid-swing, and shattered it across his knee. Then he drove both fists into the giant's legs, dropping it to the ground. With a savage yell, he climbed onto its chest and rained down blows like hammers. Bones cracked, flesh tore. He didn't stop until the thing stopped moving. I thought we had the upper hand, but the hybrid came back. It darted from the trees, claws extended, and slammed into Abigail. She screamed as it dragged her by the ankles into the woods. I ran after them with pure intensity. Bo forced himself up. With a deep, rumbling roar, he climbed into the trees and vanished overhead. I could hear Abigail yelling, branches snapping, the hybrid snarling. Then Bo dropped. He came from the canopy like a hawk, tackling the hybrid off her. They crashed to the ground, rolling through snow and mud. Bo punched hard, again and again, but he was slowing. The hybrid raked claws across his face, slashing deep. Bo faltered. The hybrid raised its claws for the killing blow. That's when the Ancient One returned. He slammed into the hybrid, lifting it clean off the ground and throwing it across the battlefield. It landed, snarled once, then turned and disappeared into the dark again. Gone. Abigail crawled to Bo, wrapping her arms around him, both of them bleeding and exhausted. I reached them and dropped to my knees, scanning for more threats. The ancient Sasquatch stood tall beside the giant's body, breathing hard, blood dripping from his fists. The battlefield fell quiet. The unknown soldiers regrouped, moving with the same silent efficiency they'd come in with. Some checked the fallen, others scanned the tree line. No one spoke. Abigail helped Bo to his feet. He leaned into her, limping but still alive. I turned to the Ancient One. He stared at me, chest heaving, then walked back into the trees without a word. Gone just as fast as he'd come. Samuel stepped beside me. "Who are they?" I asked, motioning to the soldiers. He waited a long moment before answering. "I know who they are," he said, his voice low. "But if they're here, things are worse than I thought." The forest was wrecked around us. Trees cracked and split, blood soaking through snow and mud. You could still smell smoke and gunpowder. I leaned against a broken tree, holding my side. I didn't even realize how bad I was bleeding until I pulled my coat back and saw the deep slice across my ribs. Abigail was right beside me, her hand gripping my arm. Bo and his father stood together near the tree line, silent and alert. Tui stayed in the shadows, motionless, his bow still in hand. The black-clad reinforcements moved in slowly. Their leader stepped forward, pulling back her hood. She had war paint streaked across her face, dark braids tied with feathers, and the kind of stare that could cut through fog. Samuel moved toward her, wiping blood off his knife. "I didn't expect to see you." "We didn't plan on it either," she said. "But when the hybrid started moving near the gate site, we got the signal. That thing was trying to reach something, and it wasn't subtle." Samuel nodded, glancing toward me. "This is Clay Silva, the man who's been holding the line." She looked me over, gave a nod. "I'm Mara Redfeather, commander of the Night Sentinel unit." "Appreciate the save," I said, still pressing against my side. She was about to say something else when my hand slipped. Blood ran from my fingers and splattered across the stone slab behind me. The ground shook. A hum rose under our feet, like a voice buried beneath the earth. The slab pulsed. Glowing veins of red light raced across it like lightning trapped in stone. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and every pair of eyes snapped toward me. "What did you do?" someone whispered. I didn't do anything," I said. Bo let out a low, rattling growl. His father stepped forward, but froze when the ancient Sasquatch re-emerged from the trees. Massive, silent, and still. He stood just at the edge of the tree line, watching. Samuel turned in a full circle, staring at the glowing symbols lighting up the gate stone. "This isn't supposed to be possible. I planned on us finding another way in. This gate has been sealed for centuries." Mara's team stepped back, some of them raising their weapons instinctively. Not at me, but at the gate. "What's happening?" I asked. Samuel looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. "You're bleeding. Your blood touched the stone." I didn't mean to. The gate split open with a sound like breaking bones. A deep crack opened down the middle, and the two halves peeled apart, slow and grinding, revealing a black spiral staircase carved into the rock. Heat poured out, thick and humid, like it was exhaled from the lungs of the world itself. Nobody moved. The ancient Sasquatch stepped closer, just a few slow paces, but his expression had changed. Something behind his dark eyes looked reverent. He stared at me, not the gate, like he knew what this meant. Samuel was pale now. No one's opened that door in living memory. No human, not even the tribes. That gate's tied to to something older, something sacred. Mara looked at me hard. You're not just part of this fight. You're part of whatever started it. I shook my head. I don't know anything about this. I'm just a hunter. I was trying to keep my wife safe. I didn't ask for any of this. Abigail moved up beside me. You think that matters? You think anyone standing here asked for this? She looked at the open gate. You didn't choose this, Clay, but it chose you. Tohi finally stepped from the shadows, his wolfskin cloak dragging through the snow. He stopped beside Bo, then glanced at me once, like he'd known this was coming all along. Samuel exhaled slowly, then pointed toward the open stairwell. There's an old story, the blood of the broken line, touched by war, would wake the heart of the earth. I looked down at my ribs, blood still dripping from my hand. Your ancestors might have been more than hunters, Samuel added. They might have been part of the first protectors, guardians who sealed hollow earth to protect Earth from more abominations escaping. The wind shifted again, blowing across the open gate. It felt heavy, ancient, almost mournful. Bo stepped up beside me and placed a hand on my shoulder. His father followed. Then the Ancient One, the biggest of them all, took his place on the other side. Together, they stood with me. I glanced at Abigail. She nodded once. She wasn't letting me walk into the dark without her. Samuel raised a flare. If we want to end this, if we want to stop whatever that hybrid's trying to unleash, it starts down there. Mara Redfeather gave a short command. Her unit tightened their gear and formed up behind us. I took the first step. The stairwell was carved into the bones of the earth. Cold at first, then warm, then something deeper than heat. It felt like falling into memory, or prophecy. The team followed in silence. Whatever waited below, I had no doubt it knew we were coming. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Descent into the Unknown for more horror content. If you have any real cryptid encounters, or you're a horror writer wanting to share your stories, please feel free to email me in the description anytime.